What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Combat Sports Media YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about, breaking down, and giving out a prediction for the upcoming Amir versus Kell Brook welterweight fight. Now, this fight will take place, I believe, on February 19th at the Manchester Arena in Manchester, England, and it will be televised live on Sky Sports. Now, let's start with Amir Khan. Amir Khan is a former 2004 Olympian for Great Britain, and as we all know, he won the silver medal in those Olympics. And a lot of people forget that Amir Khan was the shit in 2010, 2011. He became a unified junior welterweight champion, and he amassed a fantastic resume at that weight, with wins over Andre Kotelnik, Marcos Maidana, Zab Judah in a unification fight, Paulie Malignaggi, and that was before Paulie Malignaggi moved up to welterweight and won a world title in Ukraine. So Amir Khan definitely accomplished a lot at the weight. He ended up getting knocked out against Danny Garcia, and he moved up in weight and never had the same kind of success since moving up. I think some of it has to do with matchmaking. I don't think the fight with Canelo Alvarez at 155 pounds did him any favors. As we all know, he suffered another knockout loss in that fight. So we're talking about a guy who's been knocked out multiple times. Style-wise, he's got fast hands, and you would have to categorize him as a boxer, in my opinion, because, he's got good lateral movement. He's got good feet. He could move in and out, and he works off the jab. Now, with that said, he doesn't have the best defense in the world. As a matter of fact, he's one of the few fighters at that level that I remember gets hit flush in every single one of his fights, pretty much. He really gets hit cleanly every time he fights. But again, I feel like he doesn't get the respect that he deserves in this day and age for what he did at 140. He is a former unified junior welterweight champion with some great wins. He really did go on a tear for a little bit in 2010, 2011, before losing to Lamont Peterson and Danny Garcia. And that fight with Lamont was extremely close, and I believe Lamont actually ended up getting popped with a banned substance shortly afterwards, or for that fight actually. But I'm not too sure about that. But it was a very close competitive fight. Amir arguably won that fight, and a rematch was supposed to happen, but it didn't take place, unfortunately. Let's move on to Kell Brook. Now, Kell Brook is a natural welterweight. He's a little bit bigger than Amir Khan. He doesn't have the fantastic amateur background that Amir does. He certainly didn't go to the Olympics, and he was, as a professional, he was brought along slowly. He fought all of his fights in England as a prospect, and then I remember he had those two fights with Carson Jones. The first fight was very close. In a lot of people's eyes, he lost that fight. But you know, he ended up developing into a good fighter, and he went on to become an IBF welterweight champion. He amassed wins over the likes of Sean Porter, who is arguably a future Hall of Famer. Um, he's got and you know, okay, as far you know, talking about matchmaking, I believe that was one of the worst career moves in modern boxing history when Kell Brook won the IBF title, I believe, with that win over Sean Porter, which was great over here in America. He, instead of staying at welterweight and doing his thing, he ended up moving to middleweight and fighting Triple G and getting his face broken in. And then he ended up coming back down to welterweight, defending his title, and got his face broken again by Errol Spence. And he basically was never been the same. He has never been the same after that. Now, style-wise, I consider Kell as a boxer puncher. He's got decent hand speed, obviously nothing like Amir. But you know, he's intelligent. He's got a good power, and he's naturally more durable than Amir. Although him getting his face broken 2 times isn't going to help that case. He's naturally more bigger and more powerful than Amir. Oh, and one thing about Amir's speed I want to say, even though Amir is one of the fastest fighters that I've seen in modern boxing history, period, the fact is he's like a kid in a Ferrari that doesn't know how to drive a Ferrari. So you could have that nice fast Ferrari, but at the end of the day, if you don't know how to drive stick, or you don't know how to drive, period, you ain't gonna beat anybody in a race. You know what I mean? Or you're gonna beat very few people in a race, and you're gonna be losing to people that you shouldn't be losing to. And I'll explain to you why. Amir, every punch he throws is basically the same speed. So even though it's really fast, if you're a C-level fighter or above, after 3 rounds, if you're still there, you get used to it. And timing it becomes easy, and it no longer becomes an advantage for Amir. And that's why a lot of times you see Amir struggling in the second half of fights, because his opponents have gotten used to his speed, and his speed advantage is no longer an advantage. Unless if you're a bum, you're going to get used to it after 3 rounds, or maybe even 2. So Amir is literally like the perfect amateur fighter, where the whole fight is like 3 rounds. But it's the pros, baby. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But with all that said, I have to, you know, when it comes to predicting this fight, I have to go with Amir, because I think he's the sharper of the two, and both of their fights with Terence Crawford really, in my opinion, showed a lot. Because even though common opponents don't always mean much, in this case I think it does, because both of them fought Terence so recently. And I think Amir is the sharper of the two at the moment. And the fact that this fight is going to be at welterweight or close to welterweight is greatly going to benefit Amir. At this point in time, Kell Brook doesn't belong anywhere near fighting at welterweight. This is a guy that fought at middleweight 5 years ago. So I believe that's greatly going to benefit Amir Khan. And so because of those things, I have to favor Amir. I think he's currently the sharper fighter of the two, and the fact that it's at welterweight is greatly going to benefit him, and it's going to harm Kell Brook greatly. So there you have it, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. You'll have a good one, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace. Oh, and subscribe, especially if you haven't done so already, and if you like my content. Peace.